Okay, so welcome everybody to Shar HaBitachon. We're in the introduction of Rabbi Bachya ibn Pekuda on his own work, Shar HaBitachon is the Gate of Trust. And the last bottom line that we learned, we had two, was Bitachon is like a tap, which when you have it, it's open and the blessings pour through. But when you lack it, it's like you're closing the tap to your own blessings. And then, so we're just going to move on to the next point. Tranquility. The first benefit is that, so I think we did it a little bit and we're going to re-go back a little bit and move forward so that it will make sense. The first benefit is that bitachon causes a person to be free from worry, allowing him to devote his energy to serving Hashem. And now, so we said that if a person doesn't place his trust in Hashem, he is de facto, he's necessarily placing his trust on something other than God. And that's never going to be as good. It's like, when you're trying to get something done and you're complaining about something or something needs to be fixed in your dealings with a company, you go to an underling, but you could be going to the CEO. You have access. We all have access to the CEO. And we have to know that the CEO has the wherewithal to fix all the things and to give us all the things. He has the reins to the finances, to, the logistics, to all of it. So it's just illogical that we wouldn't. So Misha b'tech b'zulas Hashem meisir ha'elakim hashgachato me'alav u'menechoto b'yad misha batach alav. Now this is really kind of a scary thing. If a person places his trust in something other than God, then God removes his divine providence from him and leaves him in the hands of the entity in which he places his trust. So that's really quite a deep concept, and it's almost like, there's been a lot of talk about this book, The Secret, about, what you believe, that's what happens. Like, if you believe in good, then the good will happen. Lubavitch Rebbe said, you trust good and it would sign good. He doesn't say it the other way, because why would you want to draw that into your life? But if our focus is on negative, this is such a challenge to all of us right now. If we focus on all the negatives that are coming out, and the marches and the screaming and the protests and the anti-Semitism, it's a never-ending thread. It's like a rabbit hole. And if the more we go into that, the more that's what's going to manifest. So Misha b'tech b'zulat Hashem, if you trust in something that's logical, that's just like the nations did this and so that, then that will happen logically. But if we trust in Hashem and we know we can draw on a strength that's greater than all that, then Hashem's providence rests on us, because it can. It cannot rest on an empty vessel. So the author will now quote 5 verses that show how, number 1, a person who doesn't rely on God must be relying on something else, on some other entity. Number 2, by doing so, he causes God to remove his divine providence, to drop providence from him. So I'm just going to go to the commentaries for a little while on this part. If a person places his trust in something other than God, in Moreh Nevuchim, Rambam explains that when we are separated from God, he is also separated from us, leaving us exposed to any evil that might befall us. This is the meaning of the verse, and I will hide my face from them, and they shall be consumed, and many evils and troubles shall befall them. On that day, they will say, are these evils not befalling us because our God is not among us? It is clear that we are the cause of divine concealment, and that the partition that separates us from him is of our own making. The Kli Yakar explains the meaning of the verse. If you treat my commandments with indifference, then I will treat you with indifference in my vengeance. In a similar vein, God is saying that his response to the Jewish people's indifference will be his own indifference. In other words, the removal of God's providence from a person who trusts in others rather than God is not a punishment, but a natural consequence. We've often heard the saying, Mahu Afata, it's like a mirror. What is inside us? The source of that is directly God. So everything we do is a reflection. So any compassion that we have, the source of that compassion is God himself. But if we let go of that thread of who we are, then it's not like Hashem has to punish us. It's just that's the natural consequence of that lack of faith. Does that make sense? A person's existence is dependent on God's providence and kindness. When he chooses not to acknowledge this, when a person chooses not to acknowledge this and places his trust in something other than God, then God, so to speak, responds in kind. If you do not acknowledge this reality, and you do not need me, then I will indeed remove my providence from you, and your destiny will be that in which you place your trust. This does not mean that God truly removes his providence from the person. Rather, he clouds his involvement. So Hashem is always involved in our life. Hashem always wants our good, and Hashem always does everything that he does is for our good. But when we connect with Hashem, when we place our trust in Hashem, then we begin to see clearly the good, and that the good results in a good which is manifestly good in this world, and not a good where we have to find the good, and it's really hard. So although everything in the world comes from Hashem, there are two layers of divine providence. So the first one is called inner providence. How would you say providence in Hebrew? Well, it's like b'sher in hashgacha pratis, right? Hashgacha. So in this layer, in this greater layer, God's involvement is not hidden in natural phenomena, and his fingerprints are quite apparent. The person can detect a supernatural force guiding his life. The second one is external providence. In this lower layer, God is also the ultimate source because everything comes from God. However, this is concealed by natural interference. The person cannot detect that God is involved, and he feels as if he's leading his own destiny, life of his own, subject to the whims of nature. This is because he's chosen to put his trust in fickle elements rather than in God himself. And that's from the Likutei Sichos, volume 31. So the bottom line is, why choose anxiety if you can choose tranquility? Choose bitachon, always choose bitachon. So because that was quite hard and deep, I mean, the concept is deep and the practice of it is hard, I'm just going to open that up to any questions anyone has right now. Or just a discussion if anybody wants to talk about anything. And if not, then I'll just continue.
Okay. There was hi, sorry. I haven't heard this like firsthand. My family sent it to me, but I didn't watch it yet. But my parents saw a video, an interview with someone who survived the terrorist attack in the south in one of the kibbutzim. And I don't know the exact details, but the terrorists came into her house. She fled up to one of the rooms and locked herself in, maybe a loft or some sort of shelter. And I think she eventually, after about 12 hours, escaped through a window. But in her interview, and this is what they were, I mean, my mother was wowed by one thing and my father was wowed by another thing. My mother said that in the interview, she said that in the room, she kept, she had maybe like a blanket with her or some water or something. And she kept saying thank you to Hashem over and over. This woman is sitting there terrified for her life. And yet she was thanking Hashem, and she's, not a religious woman. Obviously she has some sort of intrinsic, religion. But she was thanking Hashem for everything that she had, I guess, for shelter, for water, for air. And the other thing was, my father said that what struck him was that she said, what words did she use? Ani mugenet, I'm protected. She was speaking to Hashem and saying, I'm protected. And I mean, it makes my heart, it's just incredible that this woman was there, her life was so clearly, in the hands of Hashem, and she felt protected. There were terrorists in her home, and yet she felt grateful and protected. And she obviously made that Hashem helped her make that a reality.
Wow.
I'm going to find it. They sent it to me, but I didn't listen to it yet. And I'll share it with the group, please God.
So thank you so much for sharing that. And it sort of crystallized in my heart, in my mind, the idea that, when I saw the images after Shabbos open up my phone, the images of hundreds of thousands of people chanting what they chant in the center of town. And here I am, a little Jew, hiding in my house in Golden Street. There's nothing clearer to me now than that I cannot trust in. The media, journalism, all my meditating friends who meditate for light and peace and love. No. And so the only thing we do have left is bitachon. And when the relief is so clear between the darkness and the light, when I say the bracha in the morning of Asher natan nasach bivina, who give me seichel and sense to understand the difference between day and night, it's never been more clear. And in a way, it strips you down. You mentioned that the lady might not be religious. I don't know. To me, that is the most religious thing. The whole labeling from, not from.
I meant, I think what they said was she's not, appears.
Well, like
she's
how we appear
obviously.
to each other. I
Yeah,
believe
exactly.
that what I'm seeing now, what I'm witnessing firsthand in Israel not even in Israel, all around the world, from people who don't always necessarily think of themselves as religious, who don't even call themselves religious, who will say to themselves, I align with the secular, I'm a secular Jew. But their little spark is coming out now and saying, no. All these things are so amazing to me. So I thank you for sharing that. And I'd love if you share the clip on the group. Thank you. So I'll continue. V'yiyem k'mi shenemar bo ki shtayim ra'os asa ami osi ozvu makor mayim chayim lachatzov lahem ba'orot nishbarim. So I'll translate that. And the person who places his trust in something other than God, this is Yirmiyahu talking, will be like one regarding whom it is said, for my people have committed two evils. They have forsaken me, the spring of living water, to dig for themselves broken cisterns that don't hold water. So not only we've got a supply of fresh water that we're not choosing, but we're going to a dirty, contaminated supply of broken vessels that don't hold the water. So two foolishnesses. This verse implies that a person who doesn't place his trust in God is automatically placing his trust in an entity other than God. You can't have both, right? Secondly, it implies that just as the broken cistern does not hold water, he will eventually lose the blessings. So it's like, yeah, you can channel all these things and an income and parnasa, but without the trust, without the bitachon, without the emunah, these things will come and go, and you'll always be at a loss. You'll always feel like you're on shaky legs. Secondly, it implies that just as the broken cistern does not hold. Oh, sorry, I just said that. This is a source for the concept advanced by the author that God's divine providence is removed from those who don't rely on it. So it's really important for us to strengthen our emunah at this time. Kavel Hashem, we trust in Hashem. Then we see some news and we hear something and we're like, oh my gosh, how can we have bitachon at a time like this? And we come back. Kavel Hashem. Chazak ba'ametz libecha, kavel Hashem. It's a cycle, it's a practice. We have to keep each other strong. Va'amar vayamiru et kvodam b'tavnit shor ochel esev. So the next pasuk that he's bringing us says, from the Tehillim, they exchanged their glory for the likeness of a grass-eating ox. So I think it's talking, this refers to the time when the Jews worshipped the golden calf, substituting God for the image of a grass-eating ox. In subsequent verses, it states that God was ready to destroy the Jewish nation as a punishment, were it not for the fact that Moshe interceded on their behalf. Here too, we see that as a result of the Jews substituting God with another entity, God was ready to remove his providence and destroy them. Thank God that didn't. So the commentary below, for my people have committed two evils. This verse points to the double folly of turning away from trusting in God, who is the source of everything. A person who fails to place his trust in Hashem is essentially leaving the wellspring, the source of the water in the cistern, and instead placing his trust in something other than God. Those others are mere vessels through which God provides to his people, and are without God's provision, are just broken cisterns. Tov halafanon. So the bottom line here is rely on God and receive his providence. The last thing I'll say is that the water in the verse refers to the good things that are bestowed upon us, the brachas of life. Hashem is referred to as the source of mayim chayim, living water, because the good that comes directly from God is like living water, which comes directly from the source and is not subject to any interruption. So we can see life as a never-ending flow of constant blessings, and the only thing that interrupts that blessing is our capacity to receive the blessing. And trust is the beginning of that, knowing the trust. This is in contrast to the water that is found in broken cisterns, which refers to the good that comes to a person as a result of relying on any other entity other than God. Of course, you can find a broken cistern and have some water in it. You can get your water from that. Good luck, and it will run out. But if you really want to go to source, that's where the real blessing is, because that's where it came from anyway. Just like the water that is to be found in the broken cistern doesn't come from source and cannot be contained by the system, so too the good that the person receives from entities other than God doesn't come directly from source and will eventually cease to exist. Okay, so I'm going to leave it there for today. But we've got a few minutes for any discussion or any questions. So I'll share something, and I don't know if it's literally on this topic or if it's off topic, but I feel strongly that maybe you have something to offer me at this time, because this is all I've got, and I found it very, very hard. I've been saying, the people have been circulating lists of hostages and names of soldiers, and each person takes a name and prays for that person. And I received the name Aviv. The name's Aviv, then Aviv, Doron. And I can't be completely sure, but in my mind, I was visualizing a young, beautiful Israeli girl with beautiful long hair, and just like sending out my love to her. And every time I said a bracha, Yivarechecha, sending out my love and protecting her like she was my daughter. And then after Shabbos, I was just opening up my phone, and I saw one of the kidnapped, the pictures of the hostages. And I saw a little girl called Aviv, and she's 2.5. And I got such a shock. I was like, I've been saying Tehillim for what I thought was a teenager, a young woman. I couldn't get my head around the fact that this hostage is 2.5 years old. I just spent the whole Shabbos playing with my little 3-year-old granddaughter. I just didn't even have the words to say to Helen that morning. I didn't know what to say. And so I just sang her a song. I sang her Malach. And I thought, if I was 2.5, would I want somebody sitting there crying and panicking and screaming? Or would I want the adult who's sending me to Helen to be calm and to know that all is good, and to sing her a lullaby? And that's what I gave her, because I feel when I lift my energy here, even if it's so hard, somewhere, somehow, that energy will send her a malach and lift. That's what I believe. So I think whatever the good is that we can trust in, even if it's a tiny, tiny bit, it's still good. It's still something. It opens a window for some fresh air to come in. It's like we learned in the Noach, in the Seder of Noach, that the whole world was flooded. And even inside the ark, everyone was cramped and it was smelly with all the animals. But there was a tzohar, just a little aperture of light. And with that light could come into the whole ark. And I think even if when we're feeling super challenged and we can't think of one thing, but just think of one thing that's nice, even one positive thought, I challenge you to do that, to think of one positive thought. Because I remember when I was taking my law school exams, we were all sitting around the table, me and my kids, and Rafi was doing his GCSEs and Nadia was doing her A-levels, and I was doing my degree. And the morning of my first exam, I literally panicked, and I told the kids around the breakfast table, I can't remember one thing I studied last night. And Rafi goes, Mom, he goes, I know you, just think of one thing, and then the rest of it will come back. It's like a kite on a string. You think of one thing, and the thread will come back, the rest of it will come back. And I think it's like that with positivity. Sometimes we're so deluged by negative thoughts. And just to remember, Ein od milvado, there's nothing else but Hashem. Hashem is good. Whatever it is that you have, just hold on to that thought and the more will come. So, yeah. I don't know if anyone else has got anything to tell me. I'm happy to hear anything that you have to say. And if not, I'll close it up for today.
Thank you, Shulamit. It was really beautiful. And this is not a discussion. It's just that, I know it's obvious, but that feeling of positivity directly connected to having bitachon. It's almost the same thing, really.
Yeah.
It's it's because if you really have that belief that everything is from Hashem, everything is good. I'm not going down that one, but that Hashem is good. And that's where that positivity comes from. I mean, I think that
it's like David Amelach says in Tehillim, that just pasuk that just came back to me again. Im lo shiviti romamti alei nafshi kegamol alei imo kegamol alei nafshi. Like when David Amelach goes to sleep, and when he goes to sleep, he was hiding from all his enemies. He was like really in panic. He thought he was in fear of death, of his own life. But he said, I challenge you to find me one night where I didn't go to sleep, where I soothed my soul like a little infant on his mother's breast, like, you know, like someone who's just small. And just the fact that great King David thought that to himself, even at a point where his own life was in danger. And if his life was in danger, the whole nation was in danger. That he turned to that trust and belief and soothed himself. That gives us the strength to follow him, do that now too. Challenging times. So, you know, once again, I really am grateful for each one of you for showing up.
We're grateful to be here.
Okay. You have a beautiful Sunday. Enjoy. It's a nice sunny day today. Hope you get out and have some fresh air.
Yes.
Thank you.
Speak to you soon.
Thank you so much, Shulamit.
Thank you so much, Shulamit. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.
Take care.
Bye.
Take care.